At this point in time, I'm asking myself a very important question. Who is truly at fault here? The one who trolls a competitive match of Overwatch, or the one who willingly indulges in it? By now it is very apparent that I don't necessarily play comp in order to get the highest rank I can, more than I'm trying to find story-worthy encounters. Seeing as how these encounters are far and few between, it isn't surprising that every so often, Birdie and I indulge in a bit of tomfoolery. I mean, who can blame us? We haven't gotten any new content in years, and that's not going to change anytime soon. So if you're trying to have a fun time, you're simply gonna have to do it yourself. With that said, today's story is definitely of one such case. It started off like a regular match of competitive play, but eventually we decided that it just wasn't spicy enough. Keeping our intro short and sweet, ladies and gentlemen, our story today takes place on Rialto. Now, having two degenerates on your team initially might seem like chaos waiting to happen, but despite popular belief, we don't enter a lobby with the intention of losing. As you can see, I'm playing my strongest role and character right out the gate, with Birdie trying to flex his main tank muscles, claiming it's his best role even though we all know that he's a filthy Reddit Lucio at heart. All I'm saying is that we are yet to find out if it's the red team that's going to give us trouble, or if we are indeed our own biggest enemy. So let's get the show on the road and see what fate has in store for us. Much to my surprise, the red team came out swinging with a Pharah that was not being accompanied by a Mercy. Considering the presence of a Widowmaker on our side, that shouldn't be something to worry about, but they first had to get into a position where they can contest them, meaning Overflow had free reign over the first fight. There was a very distinct difference in aggression between our duo and the rest of our team, because while all of them decided to back out in response to that Pharah, Birdie and I were determined to go deeper, which unfortunately did not end up too well for at least one of us. Losing your main tank a few seconds into your defense is bad enough of an omen to warrant a complete retreat towards your spawn. Obviously, we still had to continue pumping damage into the opposition to stop them from walking into us, but we definitely started this game off on the wrong foot. As much as our team was respecting Overflow more than was honestly warranted, our collective retreat meant we could re-engage in a hurry as soon as Birdie respawned. And with our main tank holding the door, a C-Tac could take care of that flying nuisance. The red team had a bit of a weird reaction to our counterplay, by which FLD, the Reinhardt player, decided that the best response to getting bionated on full HP was to full send it into the defenders, which obviously they were not going to survive. It was all elementary from here on out. C-Tac was going on the flank to find another angle, as the rest of my team was cleaning up whoever refused to leave the payload. And while establishing Zeynatta dominance is something I seek out to do whenever possible, I should have really known my limits, because challenging a strong hitscan player with my overblown hitbox is rarely a good idea. Though I did relish in the fact that McCree was not getting out alive, ultimately falling victim to a Venomine. I suppose you could say that all's well that ends well, but at the time, none of us had any idea that Overflow was sneaking around in our backline. A very unorthodox playstyle to say the least, but it appears as though they were setting up for a play. Meanwhile, in the front line, I had full confidence in Birdie's W plus M1 attitude to hold off the red team, continuously firing orbs into the opposition to scare them into submission. But then, during one fateful moment, Birdie decided to drop his barrier for a fire strike, allowing the enemy Widowmaker to take me out. Simultaneously, our own sniper was getting absolutely destroyed by Overflow in our backline, and as if losing our own Widow was not bad enough, they really seemed determined to remove every blue sniper out of the game by eliminating our Ana as well. We were getting systematically dismantled following that one mistimed fire strike, and while getting revenge on the flanking Pharah must have felt good, C-Tac simply could not compare to the sniping prowess of the opposition. There was absolutely nothing stopping the red team from picking us apart at that point, and while I do find my teammates' positioning in light of an extremely competent sniper very questionable, I do have to say that hitscan plays like that one aren't exactly common in these ranks, and it really was showing. Only few of us succeeded in holding onto their lives, and while just surviving is not going to win us this game, it is the first step to stabilizing your position and coming up with a plan of attack. One which we could really use right now. What wasn't helpful was our Widowmaker still trying to ego their opposition in what was very obviously an uphill battle. The red team continued to find openings and advance further, putting us in a very tough spot. If their entire strategy revolves around their Widowmaker, then taking away the high ground was probably our best bet. But Birdie found himself immediately contested by the enemy tank line, a problem that I, as a Zeynatta, might be able to assist with. Now, at the time, I was not exactly certain where Birdie had disappeared to, but I did hear the clacking of high heels on low ground, prompting me to drop down. Our team was engaging in yet unprecedented levels of feeding just to try and take out their Widow, but alas, they survived. And about Birdie, yeah, I'm sure he'd rather not talk about that, but he failed to charge his Reinhardt counterpart and ultimately went for a swim. Unlucky. We were getting team diffed by every single metric. The blue team just was not on the same page about anything going on in this match. Our Zarya was unsure about when to engage, our Reinhardt only knows how to move forward, our Widowmaker kept taking fights they rather shouldn't, and our Torbjorn was yet to make an impact. Not to mention that my flanks were absolutely futile while my Ana was desperately trying to keep all of us alive to no avail. As long as the enemy tank line can have their way with our team, there was nothing we could do to contest the Widowmaker, but their onslaught of ultimates continued to make sure that we never got to cleanly regroup to gather our forces. We were trying to funnel our resources into Birdie in a desperate attempt of gaining ground, but it appears as though I was not the only one frustrated with the course this match has taken, because Birdie really made the impression that he just slammed his face on his laptop rather than actually playing the game. It was obvious that CTAC was unable to keep up with the enemy Widowmakers, so when I spotted the red trail of doom coming from the side, I decided to help them along. I had landed enough shots to take some heat off my teammates, but you and I know that this was not enough for either of us. With an unwillingness to take the L, both of us decided to fully commit to this 1v1 on the sides. My Widowmaker might not be able to take them out, but that wouldn't stop me from trying anyway, even if that meant paying with my life. But as it turned out, just sacrificing myself to take out the Widow was not enough for us to stabilize. The red team had more than enough spring up their step to the point where just eliminating their carry was not enough to stop them. We had completely and utterly failed on this defense, which means that a change of plan was in order. You shouldn't be surprised to hear that so far in this game, we were not having a good time. There was a semblance of competence every once in a while, but by and large, we were getting absolutely rolled. It is worth mentioning that none of our teammates said a word in voice chat, meaning I'm hard-pressed to believe that any of them actually cared to improve their performance. I mean, heck, our Ana just decided to swap to Widowmaker because apparently CTAC was not doing good enough of a job. Wait, did I just see that right? Yep, you couldn't tell that this was open queue up until that point because for some reason, everyone seems to pick a standard 2-2-2 composition anyway, despite all that freedom that they are given. Hey, I said this was competitive play, I never mentioned it was role queue. Naturally, our team did what every team does when they are losing an open queue, which includes swapping to as many DPS heroes as humanly possible, believing that they can be the hero to carry this match. Before our attack round even started, I already knew that Otto was truly the only one deserving of the hero label, because even when considering their cowardly playstyle during our defense, they didn't succumb to the temptation of playing DPS. Overflow immediately tried to take control of the pace of the game once more, flying in from the flank to boop Josh off the map before returning to the supports. Birdie, finally playing the hero we all expected him to play, took it upon himself to contest Overflow since our myriad of hitscan heroes apparently didn't care to do so, and with him making for a worthwhile distraction, Josh was able to get his revenge. The payload was slowly, and I mean very slowly, advancing towards the first corner, though for some reason both attackers and defenders decided to inexplicably back out of the engagement. It truly was a weird sight to take in, but Ada was not known for his decisive plays one way or another, so I guess that was to be expected. Every opportunity that presented itself was met with indecisiveness to very frustrating degrees. It's not like the red team was that much better than us. I mean, heck, their Widow was barely doing anything for some reason, so we had every chance to make progress. But eventually I decided that enough was enough. I got Nano, once I see you.
What? Excuse me?
Yeah?
Give it. Come here, Widowmaker. You know what? I'll settle for the... Oh, never mind.
Oh.
Okay. I almost got this in.
That plan of ours definitely had a lot of potential, but the execution fell flat on its face. We continued losing squishies left, right, and center while I desperately tried to keep my Zarya alive in the face of an angry Junkrat. Otto and I were being hunted mercilessly, and in hindsight I should have really just let them take me out after I had enough of my healing darts eaten to lose my Zarya, but a bit of a saving grace was me being able to take out the Zeynatta, who now had to walk his low mobility self back to the front line. Birdie was trying to roll out of spawn in an attempt of speeding me back to safety, but instead accidentally backed out into the water. Unlucky. I gotta be honest, after our Nano Lucio strat failed miserably, I was kind of at wit's end. I genuinely felt like we exhausted all options to try and open up this game for our team, but what I didn't expect was that CTAG still had a chip on their shoulder. They might not be the carry we demand, but their opportunistic playstyle allowed them to pick off two very important targets. With these eliminations spearheading our advance, we still had a chance to avoid the embarrassment of getting full health on the first point. And as much as we succeeded in snowballing these picks into a total of 5 eliminations, we failed to kill the most important target. Their Widowmaker was still alive and kicking, meaning we got to overcome that challenge before we can call ourselves victorious. There was no ultimate too valuable and no play too risky when it came to contesting their sniper, but more than eliminating our entire lineup, they succeeded in buying enough time for the rest of their team to come back. It just was not meant to be that easy. Securing the first point meant we had to find it in ourselves to wipe their team once more, causing all of us to go into overdrive. Otto may be our only tank, but he definitely had enough courage for two. His plays were getting more bold as the game went on, and he must have realized that he has to be the pillar the rest of us can rely on. Once we had depleted our ultimate bank, there was no turning back. We had to force the opposition off the objective to stand a chance of keeping this game alive, and at long last, we had shown signs of life. But of course, if there was one person who would enjoy extinguishing the glimmer of hope that just formed in our team, it was the Widowmaker. It doesn't take a genius to realize that the sub-level 200 bronze border Widow Smurf was not meant to participate in this lobby, but complaining is not gonna get them to go away, so we just had to deal with that. Another thing I had to deal with was my ping spiking in excess of 300 MS. Yep, just the usual. Nothing weird to see here. Definitely not the reason I'm not playing rogue queue for this week's episode or anything. Once I was able to take part in this match without drifting into the 17th dimension, I found that our team's morale had greatly suffered as a result of the open sightline. Birdie claimed there was no chance we could win this game against that Widowmaker Smurf, and even though the rest of our team was quiet, seeing as how they were playing, I had reason to assume that they were in agreement about that. Of course, I had no intention of trying to counter-snipe somebody who is obviously way better than me, but maybe, just maybe, I could serve as a distraction. If there's one thing you should never underestimate, it's a DPS player's ego. There's nothing worse for a hit-scam main than admitting defeat in a Widow 1v1, so by channeling their frustration into their aim, C-Tech could make use of the distraction I provided to finally give us some space to breathe. And breathing we did, right down the enemy team's neck. Our window of opportunity was narrow and we had to make sure we could cover the bridge before the Widowmaker comes back. Featuring yet unprecedented levels of aggression, our team was running at the enemy Reinhardt in sheer disregard of the fact that we only had a single tank of our own. But who needs tanks anyway when you have testicles the size of Bobby Kotick's payout bonus? As much as I found Otto's increase in confidence commendable and definitely attribute our success at least in part to the transformation of his gameplay, maybe running towards the enemy spawn on his own was not what I would describe as a sound idea. Birdie, on the other hand, firmly disagreed with me and once again attempted to turbo int himself into the enemy Widowmaker at Mach 7 just to make sure that we aren't doing too well for ourselves. Thankfully, we still had Josh putting in 110% effort. I gotta say, I wasn't the biggest fan of his Ana performance on defense, so having him hold Widowmaker hostage was probably not helpful to our predicament. But since we had C-Tac back on sniping duty, Josh seemed to do much better in cleaning up kills whenever possible. Tensions were rising as overtime came closer and closer. The red team still had several of their members in our backline, but for now, we had to make sure that none of them could touch the objective, and while we did succeed, it did cost me my life. As much as capturing the second point was quite the weight off our shoulders, the enemy team's pincer attack was still in progress despite losing the Reinhardt. Otto and the rest of our survivors did whatever they could to try and keep the ball rolling, but unfortunately, they found themselves overwhelmed eventually. Also, a big shout out to Birdie, who apparently did not forget how to do rollouts at a spawn, but did forget that in this game, standing still does not automatically mean that the enemies can't see you. That was not our only problem though, because the enemy Widowmaker must have realized that there was a very real chance of them not automatically winning this game, resulting in them snorting a line of G fuel to continue putting us in our place. Of course, I was in too deep to disengage at that point, and since I had no mobility that could allow me to avoid getting staggered, the best thing I could do was fight for my life in the face of overwhelming damage. But as much as Birdie was responsible for more than just one death to my name, trust me when I say that he didn't mean to get me killed before, and in order to prove that, he was doing his darndest to keep the hyenas off of me. Though there's only so much he can do to keep me alive, and for some reason, FLD was trying really hard to solo shatter me. When that failed and they were left with a choice between backing out or sending it, there really was only one right decision for a team that is currently in the lead. There's no way! What is this? What is this game, bro? The red team was firmly in control, and while we barely evaded overtime up until this point, there was no way for us to do so again. Everything was relying on a final push, but what waited for us was something we definitely should have expected.
No, no, Cliff!
We can't touch it! Wow!
Dude.
Wow.
I can't right now, man.
Dude, this feels like 2016 all over again.
Oh my god, what are we... Ooh.
I know that guy. And unfortunately, that is how our first game back into Open Queue ended. I don't know if mine and Birdie's shenanigans were truly detrimental to our success, but in our defense, if our team didn't want me to nano boost the Lucio, then, well, they could have said something. Since it already felt like our team had given up after our atrocious defense, I didn't really feel bad for indulging in silly strategies. And hey, it's impressive how far we got for a team that was about to be full health. And before you ask me if you can expect to see more Open Queue episodes on the channel, yeah, I don't think I want to play anymore. Yeah. Like, This just isn't fun.
No, I hate open queue. Jeez, that's so miserable.
Open queue really does feel like a blast from the past, but frankly, I don't really get the point of it. Most games have every team default to a 2-2-2 composition anyway, the MMR is way out of whack, and as much as it was funny to win a game with me on Lucio as the only support, after 5 matches, it really gets tiring to have people argue about who is worse at DPS to determine who should be playing support. I just figured that if my internet randomly cuts out, I wouldn't care about losing 50 SR in open queue, which is the only reason I even gave it a shot. So yeah, don't expect to see it come back anytime soon. But that's it for our story here today. I hope you guys enjoyed this crazy filler arc of an episode, and if you did, do let me know by dropping me a like on your way out, consider subscribing if you want to see more, and definitely ring that bell icon to not miss out on my next upload. I hope you guys have a fantastic day, and until next time, peace!